There's a psychological truth that most people unconsciously carry, a wound so deep and so ancient that it has become invisible, integrated into the personality as if it were a natural part of who you are. This wound has a name, the wounded inner child, and it governs your adult life in ways you never imagined. Have you ever wondered why you repeat the same destructive patterns in relationships? Why you sabotage your achievements when you're on the verge of success? Why you feel a constant void, a sense that something is always missing, no matter how much you've achieved? The answer is buried in the unhealed childhood psyche. Jung discovered that we carry within us all phases of our existence. The child we once were doesn't disappear. It lives, breathes, and influences every decision we make. When this child was wounded, neglected, or forced to grow up too soon, it becomes an autonomous complex in the psyche, an unconscious force that drives our adult behaviors. But what Jung revealed about the wounded inner child goes beyond what you imagine. He showed that this child isn't just a memory from the past. It's a living part of your psyche that needs to be recognized, heard, and integrated. And today you'll discover how it manifests in your life, through signs that are as obvious as they are unsettling. Are you prepared to look into the mirror of your own childhood? Because after today, you won't be able to ignore the whispers of that wounded child living within you. Pause for a moment and observe your life with brutal honesty. How many times have you felt small in the face of criticism, even as a capable adult? How many times have you reacted with disproportionate anger to simple situations, as if you were a child having a tantrum? How many times have you completely nullified yourself in relationships, surrendering your power to others as if you were still dependent on approval to survive? That wounded child is speaking through you now. It manifests in the way you constantly seek validation, in how you avoid conflicts at all costs, or, conversely, how you create unnecessary drama to feel important. It appears when you sabotage yourself at the moment of success, as if you don't deserve to be happy, or when you choose emotionally unavailable partners, repeating the pattern of abandonment you learned in childhood. Observe how you react when someone doesn't respond to your messages immediately. Observe the silent desperation that arises when you feel rejected. Observe how you behave when you need to ask for something, as if it were an unbearable burden for others. This is your wounded inner child crying out for attention, care, and validation it never received. Do you recognize these patterns? It's because your inner child is bleeding through your adult personality. And as long as you don't look at this wound with compassion, it will continue to control your life, sabotaging your happiness and repeating the cycles of pain you learned in your early years. The wounded inner child is one of the most powerful complexes in the human psyche. Jung taught that a complex is a constellation of thoughts, feelings, and memories that cluster around a central, emotionally charged theme. In the case of the wounded child, this theme is always the same: the feeling of not being enough, of not deserving love, of needing to be perfect to be accepted. This child is born when basic emotional needs are not met during the first years of life. It could be the child who was criticized too much, praised too little, or forced to be an adult too soon to take care of their parents' problems. It could be the child who learned that love is conditional, who only received attention when they were sick, hurt, or being perfect. The wounded child creates an adaptive persona to survive. It learns to be what others need it to be, molding itself like a chameleon to gain approval and avoid abandonment. But this adaptation comes at a high price: the loss of connection with the authentic self. The childhood psyche functions in a primitive and magical way. For a child, if parents are unhappy, it automatically assumes it's their fault. If it doesn't receive the love it needs, it concludes it doesn't deserve love. If it's constantly criticized, it internalizes that it is flawed. These childhood conclusions crystallize as absolute truths in the psyche and continue to operate in adult life, even when the rational mind knows they don't make sense. The wounded child lives in a constant state of alert, always expecting the next rejection, the next criticism, the next abandonment. And it is this exhaustive vigilance that manifests through the unsettling signs you are about to discover. The first unsettling sign that you have a wounded inner child is the compulsive need to please everyone, even when it means betraying yourself. You transform into an emotional chameleon, changing your personality depending on who is in front of you. With your parents, you're the obedient child. With friends, you're the joker or the confidant. At work, you're the perfect collaborator who never says no. This compulsion for approval is the wounded child trying to ensure it will never be rejected or abandoned again. It learned that love is something that needs to be earned, and that's why you bend over backward to be indispensable in the lives of others. But the more you mold yourself to please, the further you distance yourself from who you truly are. Observe how you feel physically when you need to contradict someone or express a different opinion. The anxiety that arises, the tension in your chest, the fear of disappointing others are all signs that your inner child is in a panic. It whispers, "If they don't like me, they'll abandon me and I won't survive." The second sign is hypersensitivity to criticism, even the most constructive. When someone points out a mistake of yours or suggests an improvement, you don't just hear the words, you hear the voice of your parents, teachers, or childhood caregivers saying that you are not enough. Your reaction is disproportionate because it's not just the adult responding. It's the wounded child being activated. This hypersensitivity manifests in two ways. Either you completely withdraw, closing yourself off in a cocoon of shame and self-pity, or you explode in defensive anger, attacking whoever dared to question your perfection. Both reactions are desperate attempts by the wounded child to protect the little self-esteem it managed to build. Criticism isn't just an opinion about your behavior, it's an existential threat to your sense of belonging. The wounded child interprets any negative feedback as confirmation that it is fundamentally flawed and doesn't deserve love. The third sign is extreme difficulty in establishing and maintaining healthy boundaries. You say yes when you want to say no. You accept responsibilities that aren't yours. You allow others to invade your emotional, physical, or mental space without resistance. And when you finally try to set a boundary, you feel guilty, selfish, as if you were committing a crime. This inability to protect yourself is the result of a child who learned that its needs don't matter. Perhaps it was punished when it expressed discontent, or perhaps it was ignored when it asked for attention. The internalized message is clear. You only have value if you are available to serve others. The wounded child believes that setting boundaries means losing love. That's why you become a bottomless pit, always available, always willing to sacrifice your well-being to maintain relationships. But this compulsive availability doesn't generate genuine love. It attracts people who take advantage of your difficulty saying no. Observe how you feel when someone asks for something you don't want to do. The anxiety that arises isn't fear of conflict, it's terror of rejection. Your inner child whispers, "If I say no, they will abandon me and I will be alone forever." The fourth unsettling sign is systematic self-sabotage, especially when you are about to achieve something important. You work hard for a goal, get close to achieving it, and then do something that destroys everything. You end relationships that were going well. You sabotage professional opportunities. You self-destruct achievements that took years to build. This self-sabotage isn't masochism. It's the wounded child trying to confirm its deepest beliefs about itself. If it believes it doesn't deserve to be happy, success becomes a threat to its identity. It's safer to fail than to face the possibility of being successful and discovering that you still feel empty. The wounded child is afraid of success because success means visibility, and visibility means a risk of rejection. It's more comfortable to remain small, invisible, than to risk shining and being criticized. Self-sabotage is a perverse form of self-preservation. Observe the moments in your life when you were about to make a quantum leap, and mysteriously something went wrong. Analyze whether it was genuinely bad luck or if you, unconsciously, created the conditions for failure. The wounded child prefers the known pain of failure to the unknown pain of success. The fifth and final sign is the constant feeling of inner emptiness, an emotional hunger that no external achievement can satisfy. You might have professional success, seemingly solid relationships, social recognition, and yet still feel that something fundamental is missing. It's as if there's a black hole at the center of your existence, sucking away all joy and satisfaction. This emptiness is the absence of the authentic self. The wounded child created so many masks, developed so many survival strategies, that it lost contact with who it truly is. You became so skilled at being what others needed that you forgot your own needs, desires, and dreams. Emotional hunger manifests through compulsive behaviors. Overeating, overworking, overspending, oversexing. All these compulsions are desperate attempts to fill the void left by the child who was never truly seen, heard, and loved for who it was. This feeling of emptiness is actually a call. It's the wounded child crying out for attention, begging to be recognized, embraced, and integrated. It's tired of wearing masks, tired of pretending to be strong when it's broken inside. It wants to come home, but home is yourself. The emptiness isn't a character flaw. It's a soul wound that needs to be healed with compassion, patience, and a lot of self-love. It's the space where your wounded child is waiting to be rediscovered and integrated into the conscious adult you have become. Now that you've recognized the signs of your wounded child, it's time to begin the most important process of your life: inner healing. The first tool Jung taught us is inner dialogue, a conscious conversation between the adult you are today and the child living within you. Find a moment of silence and privacy. Grab a journal or open a blank document. Start by writing a letter to your inner child. Use your dominant hand to write as the conscious adult and your non-dominant hand to respond as the child. Ask it, "What do you need? What do you want to tell me? How can I take better care of you?" Observe what kind of response emerges. Perhaps it says it's tired of trying to be perfect. Perhaps it confesses it's afraid of being rejected. Perhaps it reveals an old anger that it was never able to express. Whatever the response, receive it with compassion, without judgment. This child has carried the pain alone for too long. Healing the inner child isn't a linear process. There will be days when you feel enormous progress, and others when old patterns resurface with full force. This is normal. The psyche doesn't transform overnight. It heals in layers, like an onion being delicately peeled. Practice self-reparenting. When the wounded child manifests through self-sabotaging behaviors, don't attack it with self-criticism. Instead, acknowledge, my inner child is scared. It's trying to protect me in the only way it knows how. This shift in perspective, from criticism to compassion, is the first step toward integration. Create self-care rituals that honor your inner child. It could be a relaxing bath when it's anxious, a walk in nature when it feels overwhelmed, or simply 5 minutes of conscious breathing when it's in a panic. Show it that there is now a conscious adult who is willing to take care of its emotional needs. You've come this far because you were called to this healing journey. Recognizing the signs of the wounded child isn't a life sentence. It's a gateway to liberation. You are no longer that helpless child who had to mold itself to survive. You are a conscious adult with the power of choice, the capacity for healing, and the wisdom to transform pain into compassion. The wounded child living within you has carried this pain for a long time, thinking it was protecting you. Now it's time to thank it for the sacrifice and say, "I'll take it from here. You can rest. You can be a child again. I'll take care of both of us." This is the promise of individuation, not to eliminate the inner child, but to consciously integrate it into the complete self. When you heal this part of yourself, you break generational patterns of pain, freeing not only yourself, but also future generations from the burden of unresolved trauma. The journey is just beginning. Every day you choose to look inward with courage. Every time you respond to your wounded child with love instead of criticism, every moment you honor your emotional needs is a step toward complete healing. Comment which of the 5 signs resonated with you the most. Your honesty might help someone who hasn't yet had the courage to look at their own wound. Like if you felt the courage to face your inner child with compassion. Subscribe to continue this journey of self-discovery and inner healing. You are no longer alone on this journey. Your wounded child has finally been seen, heard, and embraced. And now, together, you can write a new story, a story of healing, self-love, and authenticity. The wounded inner child becomes the healed inner child, and you become whole again. Integrate.